The wind was howling like a wild animal that night. Snow was falling so thick that you couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. Up in the Appalachian Mountains, where the air gets thin and the cold cuts right through you, a young girl was fighting for her life. Her name was Lily, and she was just 17 years old. She'd been walking for what felt like forever, her feet numb inside her worn-out shoes. The coat she wore was so thin it might as well have been paper. Every step was harder than the last, and her legs felt like they were made of stone. Just that morning, everything had fallen apart. Her stepfather, a mean drunk who'd made her life miserable for 3 years, had finally done what he'd been threatening to do for months. He threw her out. No warning, no second chances. Just grabbed her by the arm, shoved her out the front door, and locked it behind her. She'd banged on that door until her fists hurt, begging him to let her back in. But he just laughed from inside and told her to figure it out herself. Lily had nowhere to go. Her real father had died when she was small, and her mother had passed just a year ago from cancer. That's how she ended up with her stepfather in the first place. She had an aunt 3 towns over, but that was more than 50 miles away, and she had no money for a bus, no phone to call for help, nothing but the clothes on her back and a heart full of fear. So she started walking, thinking maybe she could make it to the main road where someone might pick her up. But the storm came out of nowhere, faster and meaner than anyone expected. The temperature dropped so fast she could feel it happening. Her fingers started going numb first, then her toes. Her face felt like it was being stabbed with 1,000 tiny needles. As the sun began to set, panic really set in. Lily knew what happened to people who got caught in mountain storms like this. They didn't make it. The cold didn't care about your plans or your dreams. It just took you. She was starting to think this was how her story would end when she saw it. A light, small and flickering, but real. It was coming from somewhere off the main path, down a narrow trail that wound between the trees. Lily didn't think twice. She turned and started pushing through the snow toward that light, praying with every step that whoever lived there would have mercy on her. The trail seemed to go on forever, but finally she broke through a clearing. There, sitting against the mountain like it had grown right out of the rock, was a small cabin. Next to it stood an old barn, its wood weathered gray by years of mountain weather. The light was coming from a window in the cabin, warm and golden and more beautiful than anything Lily had ever seen. She stumbled toward the barn first, thinking maybe she could just slip inside without bothering anyone, but her legs gave out before she reached it. She fell hard into the snow, and for a moment she just lay there. It would be so easy to just close her eyes and sleep. So easy to just let go. But something inside her, some stubborn spark that refused to die, made her get back up. She crawled the last few feet to the barn door and used it to pull herself upright. Her hands were shaking so bad she could barely knock, but she did. 3 weak knocks that barely made any sound. Nothing happened. The wind screamed around her, and fresh snow started piling up on her shoulders. She knocked again, harder this time, using the last bit of strength she had left. That's when she heard footsteps, heavy boots on wood. The barn door swung open, and there stood a man who looked like he could wrestle bears and win. He was tall, maybe 6'3", with shoulders as wide as a doorframe. His beard was thick and dark with streaks of gray running through it. His eyes were a deep brown, almost black in the dim light. He wore a flannel shirt with the sleeves rolled up despite the cold, and his arms were thick with muscle and old scars. The man stared at her for a long moment, his face showing nothing. No surprise, no sympathy, nothing. Just a blank, hard stare that made Lily's stomach drop. But she'd come this far. She had to try. "Please, sir," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Her teeth were chattering so hard she could barely form words. "I don't mean no trouble. I just need somewhere to get out of the cold. Just a corner of your barn. I won't bother nothing. I'll leave first thing in the morning, I swear. Please, I'm begging you." Tears were streaming down her face now, freezing on her cheeks almost as soon as they fell. She knew how pathetic she must look, knew this stranger had no reason to help her. But she was out of options. The man stood there studying her with those dark eyes. His jaw was clenched tight, and his hand gripped the edge of the door so hard his knuckles were white. The silence stretched on so long Lily was sure he was about to slam the door in her face. She dropped her gaze to the snow, ready for rejection. Ready to either lie down and die or somehow find the strength to keep walking, though she didn't know where she'd go. Then she heard his voice. It was deep and rough, like gravel rolling in a barrel, like someone who didn't use it much. "Barns for animals. Lily's heart sank. He was saying no. She'd die out here tonight and he'd probably find her frozen body in the morning. She started to turn away, trying to figure out which direction to stumble in next. But then he spoke again, and this time, his words stopped her cold. "You'll stay in the house." Lily's head snapped up, sure she'd heard him wrong. But the man had already turned and was walking toward the cabin, leaving the barn door open behind him. He stopped after a few steps and looked back over his shoulder. "You coming or not? I ain't heeding the whole mountain." Lily couldn't believe it, couldn't process what was happening. But her body moved before her brain could catch up, stumbling through the snow toward the cabin, toward warmth, toward safety, toward a mountain man whose simple words had just saved her life, even though she had no idea why he'd chosen to help a desperate stranger on the worst night of her life. The inside of the cabin hit Lily like a wall of warmth. After hours in the freezing cold, the heat from the wood stove felt almost painful against her frozen skin. She stood just inside the doorway, dripping melted snow onto the worn wooden floor, not sure what to do or say. The cabin was small, but solid. Everything looked handmade and built to last. There was a stone fireplace in the corner with a fire burning low, a simple kitchen area with rough-cut cabinets, a table with 2 chairs. Everything was clean but basic, like the person who lived here didn't care much about comfort, just survival. The big man closed the door behind her, shutting out the screaming wind. In the quiet of the cabin, Lily could hear her own breathing, fast and shaky. She could hear water dripping from her clothes. She could hear her heart pounding in her ears. "Thank you," she managed to say, her voice cracking. "Thank you so much. I don't know how to save it," the man said, his voice still rough but not unkind. He walked past her to the wood stove and stirred up the fire, adding a fresh log. Orange light flickered across his weathered face. "You're half frozen. Need to warm up slow or you'll go into shock." He pulled one of the chairs closer to the stove and pointed at it. Lily sat down gratefully, her legs shaking. Now that she was safe, her body seemed to realize just how close she'd come to dying. Her hands trembled violently as she tried to pull her wet coat off. The man watched her struggle for a moment, then stepped forward and helped her with the coat. He hung it on a hook near the door, then disappeared into another room. Lily sat there, staring at the fire, trying to process what was happening. Who was this man? Why was he helping her? What did he want? He came back carrying a thick wool blanket and what looked like an old sweatshirt and pants. "Bathroom's through there," he said, pointing to a door on the left. "Get out of those wet clothes before you catch your death. These are clean. They'll be big, but they're warm." Lily took the clothes with shaking hands. Thank you, really. I don't even know your name." "Don't matter right now," he said, turning back to the kitchen. "Get changed. Then we'll talk." The bathroom was tiny but clean. Lily peeled off her wet clothes, her fingers so numb she could barely work the buttons. When she looked in the small mirror above the sink, she barely recognized herself. Her lips were blue. Her face was pale as paper except for the bright red patches on her cheeks and nose where frostbite had started to set in. Her dark hair hung in wet tangles around her face. She looked like a ghost, or maybe someone who'd just escaped becoming one. The dry clothes felt like heaven. The sweatshirt hung down to her knees and she had to roll the pants up 3 times just to walk without tripping. But they were warm and soft, and that's all that mattered. When she came back out, the man had set a bowl on the table. Steam was rising from it, and the smell made her stomach cramp with sudden hunger. She couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten. "Sit," he said. "Eat slow. Your stomach's going to be upset if you rush it." Lily sat at the table and looked at the bowl. It was simple beef stew, thick and hot. She picked up the spoon with trembling hands and took a small bite. It was the most delicious thing she'd ever tasted. The man sat down across from her, watching her eat with that same unreadable expression. His hands were clasped on the table in front of him, scarred and calloused from years of hard work. Everything about him screamed strength and isolation. This was not a man who welcomed visitors. "I'm sorry," Lily said between bites. "I'm so sorry to barge in on you like this. I didn't know where else to go." "Where you coming from?" he asked. "Down the mountain. About 10 miles back, I think. Maybe more. I lost track." His eyebrows went up slightly. "You walked 10 miles in this storm?" "Didn't have a choice." "Why not?" Lily's throat tightened. She didn't want to talk about it. Didn't want to admit how pathetic her situation was. But this man had saved her life. He deserved some kind of explanation. "My stepfather kicked me out," she said quietly, staring into her bowl. Told me I was on my own now. I tried to get to the main road, thinking I could catch a ride to my aunt's place, but the storm came up fast. And your mother? Dead a year ago. The man was quiet for a long moment. When Lily looked up, she thought she saw something flicker across his face. Pain, maybe. Or recognition. But it was gone so fast she might have imagined it. How old are you? He asked. 17. I'll be 18 in a few months. He nodded slowly like he was working through something in his head. Storm's not letting up anytime soon. Radio says it's gonna last at least 2, maybe 3 days. You can stay until it passes. After that, we'll figure out what to do. Lily felt tears burning in her eyes again. I can work, she said quickly. I can clean, I can cook, I can help with whatever you need. I won't just sit around. I'll earn my keep. We'll talk about it tomorrow, he said, standing up. Right now you need sleep. He led her to a door off the main room and opened it. Inside was a small bedroom with a single bed, a dresser, and a window that looked out into the storm. The bed was made with a faded quilt and everything was neat and clean. But what caught Lily's attention were the things on the dresser. A small jewelry box painted with flowers, a stuffed rabbit with one ear shorter than the other, a framed picture of a little girl with missing front teeth grinning at the camera. Lily realized with a cold shock what this room was. Who it had belonged to. She turned to the man, questions on her lips, but he was already backing away. Door locks from the inside, he said, his voice even rougher than before. Use it if it makes you feel safer. I sleep light, so if you need anything in the night, just holler. Wait, Lily said. I don't even know your name. He paused in the doorway, his broad shoulders filling the frame. For a moment she thought he wasn't going to answer. Then he spoke. Jack. Jack Patterson. Most folks call me Bear. I'm Lily, he nodded once. Get some sleep, Lily. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. Then he closed the door and was gone. Lily stood there in the small room, surrounded by the belongings of a child who clearly no longer lived here. She looked at the lock on the door, thought about using it, then decided against it. Something in her gut told her she was safe here. She climbed into the bed, and despite everything, despite the fear and confusion and questions racing through her mind, she fell asleep almost instantly. For the first time in months, maybe years, she felt warm and safe. Outside, the storm raged on. But inside the little cabin on the mountain, a girl who'd been thrown away like garbage slept peacefully, watched over by a man who knew exactly what it felt like to lose everything. Lily woke up confused, not knowing where she was for a few terrifying seconds. Then it all came rushing back. The storm, the desperate walk, the mountain man named Jack who'd taken her in. Morning light was streaming through the window, but it was dim and gray. She could hear wind still battering the cabin, and when she looked out, all she could see was white. The storm hadn't let up at all. She got out of bed slowly, her body aching all over. Her muscles felt like they'd been beaten with hammers. That's what happens when you walk 10 miles through a blizzard, she thought. You're lucky to be alive. When she opened the bedroom door, she found the cabin empty. The fire in the stove was burning strong, which meant Jack had already been up and tending to it. On the table sat a plate covered with a clean dish towel. Lily walked over and lifted it to find scrambled eggs, toast, and 2 strips of bacon still warm. Next to the plate was a simple note written in rough handwriting. Eat. I'm in the barn. Come out when you're ready if you want. Dress warm. Lily ate the breakfast gratefully, looking around the cabin in the daylight. It was even simpler than she'd thought last night. No television, no computer, no decorations on the walls, except for one picture hanging above the fireplace. She walked closer to look at it. It was a photograph of Jack, but a different Jack than the one she'd met. This Jack was smiling, his arm around a pretty woman with kind eyes. On his shoulders sat a little girl, maybe 6 or 7 years old, laughing with pure joy. All 3 of them looked so happy it made Lily's chest ache. She knew without being told that these people were gone. You don't live alone on a mountain, keeping a child's room like a shrine, if you still have your family. After washing her plate, in the sink Lily put on her now dry coat and the boots Jack had left by the door. They were too big, but with extra socks they worked. Then she pushed open the cabin door and stepped out into the storm. The cold hit her like a fist, even worse than yesterday because now she knew what it could do. But the barn was only 20 feet away, and she could see light coming from inside. She put her head down and pushed through the snow. Inside the barn, it was warmer than outside, but still cold enough to see her breath. The space was bigger than she expected, with stalls for animals along one side and a workshop area on the other. Jack was in the workshop, bent over a piece of wood on a workbench using a hand plane to smooth its surface. He looked up when she came in, gave her a quick nod, then went back to his work. Lily stood there awkwardly, not sure what to do. "You can sit if you want," Jack said without looking up, "or there's chickens need feeding if you're looking for something to do. Feed's in that bin over there. They're in the coop at the far end." Lily chose to do something useful. She found the feed bin and filled a bucket, then made her way to the chicken coop. 6 chickens lived there, fluffy and warm in their insulated space. They clucked excitedly when they saw the feed crowding around her feet. For the next hour, Lily busied herself around the barn. She fed the chickens, collected eggs, mucked out the 2 stalls even though they were already pretty clean, and organized some tools that were hanging crooked on the wall. All the while, Jack worked in his corner, the sound of his tools the only noise besides the wind. Finally, she ran out of things to do. She walked over to his workbench and watched him work. His hands moved with surprising gentleness for such a big man, carefully shaping the wood into something beautiful. "What are you making?" she asked. "Rocking chair," he said. "Got an order for it from someone in town." "You sell furniture?" "Sometimes. When I need money." "It's beautiful," he grunted, which she was learning was his way of saying thanks. They stood in silence for a while. Then Lily took a deep breath and asked the question that had been burning in her mind since she woke up. "Why are you helping me?" Jack's hands stilled on the wood. He didn't look at her, just stared down at the chair he was making. "You needed help," he said finally. "Lots of people need help. Most folks would have told me to get lost, especially someone who clearly wants to be left alone." Jack set down his tools and straightened up, turning to face her. His dark eyes were hard to read, but there was something in them that looked like old pain. "5 years ago," he said slowly, "I had a wife and a daughter. Pretty thing named Katie, just turned 7. One day, I was down in town getting supplies. Took longer than I should have. There was a storm coming in and they tried to drive down the mountain to meet me. Didn't want me driving back alone in bad weather." Lily's heart started to sink. She knew where this story was going. "Road was icy," Jack continued, his voice flat and distant. "Car went off the cliff at Dead Man's Curve. They didn't survive the fall." "I'm so sorry," Lily whispered. "Found out later that if I'd just come home when I was supposed to, they never would have been on that road. They'd still be alive. That's not your fault." Jack's laugh was bitter. "Tell that to the voice in my head that's been saying otherwise for 5 years. He picked up his tools again but didn't start working, just held them in his big hands. "I came up here after the funeral. Couldn't stand being around people, couldn't stand their pity. Thought maybe if I disappeared into these mountains, the guilt would stay down below. It didn't. Followed me right up here and settled in like a second shadow. So why help me?" Lily asked again, softer this time. Jack was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion he was trying to hide. "That room you're sleeping in was Katie's. Haven't changed a thing since she died. Can't bring myself to pack it up, but can't stand to look at it either. Last night when you knocked on my barn door, all I could think was, what if it had been Katie? What if my little girl had been out in that storm, desperate and alone, and she knocked on some stranger's door? What would I want that stranger to do?" Understanding washed over Lily like warm water. You'd want them to help her. I'd want them to treat her like she mattered, like her life was worth saving. Jack finally met her eyes. "So that's what I'm doing. I'm helping you because someone should have been there to help them, and they weren't. Can't change the past, but maybe I can do right by someone else's kid." Lily felt tears streaming down her face. "I'm not your daughter. No, you're not. But you're somebody's daughter, and you deserve better than dying in the snow because the world's been cruel to you." For the first time since her mother died, Lily felt like someone actually saw her. not as a burden or a problem or something to be gotten rid of, but as a person who mattered. "The storm's gonna last a few more days," Jack said, turning back to his work. "After that, we'll figure out what comes next. Until then, you pull your weight around here, understand? I don't believe in charity. You work for your keep." "Yes, sir," Lily said, wiping her eyes. "And stop with the sir business. Makes me feel old." "Just Jack is fine." "Okay. Just Jack." The corner of his mouth twitched. It wasn't quite a smile, but it was close. They worked together in the barn for the rest of the day, falling into an easy rhythm. Jack taught her how to properly care for his tools, how to stack wood so it would season right, how to tell if an egg was fresh just by looking at it, little things that didn't matter much individually, but added up to something important. As evening fell and they walked back to the cabin through the still raging storm, Lily realized something. She'd woken up that morning not knowing if she had a future. Now standing next to this gruff mountain man who'd saved her life, she felt the smallest spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, things were going to be okay. 3 days passed and the storm finally started to break. The wind died down from a scream to a whisper, and bits of blue sky began peeking through the clouds. But the snow was so deep now that leaving still wasn't an option. The mountain roads wouldn't be clear for at least another week. Lily didn't mind. In fact, she was surprised to find she didn't want to leave at all. Life in the cabin had settled into a comfortable rhythm. She woke up each morning to find Jack already up, the fire going and coffee brewing on the stove. They'd eat breakfast together in silence, then head out to the barn to do chores. Jack would work on his furniture while Lily took care of the chickens, organized the workshop, and did whatever else needed doing. At first, the silence between them had been awkward. Lily kept trying to make conversation, asking questions that Jack would answer with 1 or 2 words. But gradually she learned that Jack wasn't being rude. He was just a man who'd forgotten how to talk to people. So she stopped pushing. Instead, she just existed alongside him, and slowly something started to shift. It started small. On the 4th morning, Jack asked her if she knew how to make biscuits. When she said no, he showed her, his big hands surprisingly gentle as he demonstrated how to work the dough just right. They turned out perfect, and when Lily said so, Jack's face did that almost smile thing again. On the 5th day, while they were working in the barn, one of the chickens escaped and went running around like a feathery maniac. Lily chased it, slipped on some ice, and landed flat on her back in the snow. Jack rushed over, looking worried, but when he saw she was fine, something incredible happened. He laughed. Actually laughed. It was rusty and rough, like he'd forgotten how, but it was real. By the 6th day, they were actually having conversations, real ones, where Jack spoke in full sentences and sometimes even volunteered information without being asked. That evening, Lily decided to do something she'd been thinking about since she got there. She cooked dinner. Jack had been letting her eat his food all week without asking for anything in return. Sure, she was doing chores, but that didn't feel like enough. So while he was outside splitting more firewood, she rummaged through his pantry and got to work. The kitchen was simple, but it had everything she needed. Her mother had taught her to cook when she was young, and it was one of the few good memories she had left. She made chicken stew with vegetables, cornbread from scratch, and even attempted an apple pie with some dried apples she found in the cupboard. When Jack came back inside, stamping snow off his boots, he stopped dead in his tracks. The whole cabin smelled like home cooking and the table was set with plates and everything. "What's all this?" he asked, looking confused. "Dinner," Lily said, suddenly nervous. "I hope that's okay. I just wanted to, say thank you properly." Jack stood there for a moment, just staring at the table. His face did something complicated, cycling through emotions too fast for Lily to read. For a second, she thought maybe she'd done something wrong. Maybe this was too much. Maybe she'd overstepped. Then Jack cleared his throat roughly. "Smells good," he said quietly. "Real good. Thank you." They sat down to eat, and for the first time since Lily arrived, the silence felt completely comfortable. Natural, even. Like two people who understood each other without needing to fill every moment with words. "This is delicious," Jack said after his first bite of stew. "Where'd you learn to cook like this?" "My mom," Lily said, smiling at the memory. "Before she got sick, she used to say that cooking was love you could taste. She taught me everything she knew. She sounds like she was a good woman. She was the best. Everything went wrong after she died. Jack nodded slowly. Tell me about your stepfather. What's his deal? Lily's smile faded. She pushed some stew around on her plate. His name's Raymond. Mom married him 2 years before she died. I think she was just scared of being alone, you know? Scared of leaving me with nobody. He seemed okay at first. But after she passed, he changed. Or maybe he was always that way and just hid it better. He hurt you? Jack's voice went hard and cold. Not physically. Not really. He'd grab my arm sometimes, push me around a little. But mostly he just made it clear I was a burden. That he never wanted me around in the first place. He started drinking more and more. Would spend all the money on booze and gambling, then yell at me for eating too much food. It got worse every month. Why'd he kick you out now? Lily took a deep breath. I found out he'd been stealing my mom's Social Security survivor benefits. The money that was supposed to help take care of me. He'd been cashing the checks and using them to pay off his gambling debts. I confronted him about it, told him I was going to report him. Next morning, he threw me out. Jack's jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscles jumping. That's theft. And child abandonment. He could go to jail. Yeah, well. Hard to report someone when you're fighting just to survive. They ate in silence for a few minutes. Then Jack spoke again. What about this aunt you mentioned? She any good? Aunt Helen? She's okay, I guess. We're not close. She and my mom had some kind of falling out years ago. But she's family and she's not mean. I was thinking maybe she'd let me stay until I figured things out. You got her number? Yeah, why? Jack pushed back from the table and walked to an old desk in the corner. He came back with a dusty cell phone and a charging cable. Phone doesn't get much signal up here, but there's one spot in the barn where it works sometimes. Tomorrow we'll try calling her. Let her know you're alive at least. Lily felt a wave of emotion wash over her. She'd been so focused on just surviving that she hadn't even thought about the fact that maybe someone was worried about her. Maybe Aunt Helen had heard from Raymond that she was gone and was panicking. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. I know I keep saying it, but I mean it. You saved my life and you don't even know me. Jack looked uncomfortable like he always did when she thanked him. Yeah, well, seemed like the right thing to do. Still, most people wouldn't have. Most people aren't carrying around the guilt of letting their family down when they needed them most. Jack's voice was rough again. Maybe helping you is selfish. Maybe I'm just trying to make up for not being there when it counted. That's not selfish. That's human. Jack stood up and started clearing the dishes. I'm going to tell you something I learned the hard way, he said, his back to her as he worked. Guilt's a funny thing. It'll eat you alive if you let it. I spent 5 years punishing myself, hiding up here, trying to disappear. Thought if I just stayed away from people, I couldn't fail anyone else. He turned to face her, and his eyes were filled with something that looked like pain and understanding mixed together. But you can't hide from life forever. It finds you anyway. And when it does, you got a choice. You can keep running, keep punishing yourself, or you can try to do better, try to be better. I don't know if I'm doing this right, taking you in like this. Don't know if I'm helping or making things worse. But I'm trying. And that's got to count for something. Lily stood up and walked over to him. Without thinking, she hugged him. Just wrapped her arms around his middle and held on tight. He went stiff as a board, clearly not used to being touched. But after a moment, very slowly, his arms came up and patted her back awkwardly. You're doing it right, Lily said into his shirt. You're doing everything right. They stood like that for just a moment, two broken people holding each other up. Then Jack cleared his throat and gently pulled away. All right, enough of that, he said, but his voice was softer than usual. You did the cooking, so I'll do the dishes. You go sit by the fire and warm up. Lily did as she was told, settling into the old chair by the fireplace. She watched Jack wash dishes at the sink, his big frame hunched over the small basin. And she realized something that made her chest feel warm. For the first time since her mother died, she felt like she was home. Not because of the place. The cabin was nice, but it was just a building. No, she felt home because of the person. Because Jack, this gruff mountain man who barely spoke and carried the weight of the world on his shoulders, had shown her more kindness in 1 week than she'd experienced in years. Outside, the storm clouds were finally clearing. Tomorrow would be a new day. Tomorrow they'd try to call Aunt Helen and figure out the next step. But tonight, in this warm cabin on a cold mountain, Lily allowed herself to just be grateful. She was alive. She was safe. And maybe, just maybe, She'd found a friend in the last place she ever expected. The next morning dawned clear and bright. For the first time since Lily arrived, she could actually see the mountains around them. They stretched out in every direction, covered in fresh snow that sparkled like diamonds in the sunlight. It was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. After breakfast, Jack pulled out his old cell phone and they trudged to the barn. He was right about the signal. It took them 20 minutes of walking around holding the phone up in the air before they found the one magic spot where 2 bars flickered to life. Lily dialed Aunt Helen's number with shaking hands. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Then a woman's voice answered. "Hello? Aunt Helen? It's Lily." There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. "Lily? Oh my God, Lily? Where are you? Are you okay? Raymond called me 4 days ago saying you'd run off. I've been worried sick. I'm okay. I'm safe. I'm up in the mountains with someone who's helping me." "The mountains? What mountains? Who's helping you? Lily, what's going on?" For the next 10 minutes, Lily explained everything. The fight with Raymond, getting kicked out, the storm, and how Jack had taken her in. She left out some of the scarier details, not wanting to worry her aunt more than necessary. When she finished, Aunt Helen was quiet for a long moment. "I'm so sorry," she finally said, her voice thick with emotion. "I should have checked on you more after your mother passed. I knew Raymond was trouble, but I thought maybe he'd stepped up. I should have known better. It's not your fault. It is, a little, but we can fix this. You can come stay with me, honey. I've got room. It's not much, but it's yours if you want it." Lily looked at Jack, who was pretending not to listen while he fiddled with some tools nearby. "Can I think about it? Just for a few days?" Aunt Helen sounded surprised. "Of course, sweetie. Take all the time you need. Just promise me you're really safe where you are." "I promise. Jack's a good man. He's taking care of me. Well, you tell this Jack that if anything happens to you, he'll answer to me." Despite everything, Lily smiled. "I will. I'll call you again in a few days, okay?" After they hung up, Lily stood there holding the silent phone, feeling weird and unsettled. She should be happy. She had a place to go, a family member willing to take her in. Problem solved, right? So why did the thought of leaving make her feel so sad? Jack must have sensed her mood. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Yeah. Aunt Helen says I can come live with her." "That's good. That's real good." "Yeah." Jack studied her face. "You don't sound like it's good." Lily shrugged, not sure how to explain. "It is good. I'm grateful. It's just, I don't know. Being here with you, it feels right somehow. Like this is where I'm supposed to be." Jack looked uncomfortable again. "Lily, you can't stay here forever. This is no place for a young girl. You need to be around people your own age. You need to finish school, have a real life." "I could finish school from here. And who says this isn't a real life? Because this ain't living. This is hiding." Jack's voice was firm but not unkind. "I came up here to escape, and that's what I've been doing for 5 years. Existing, but not really living. You deserve better than that. What if I don't want to leave yet?" The words came out before Lily could stop them. "What if I want to stay a while longer? Just until spring, maybe? I could help you. Really help you, not just with chores." I saw all those pieces of furniture in the back of the barn. Beautiful stuff just sitting there collecting dust. You could be selling that. I sell when I need to. But you could sell more, make it a real business. I could help with that. I'm good with numbers and organizing things. My mom used to run a small bookkeeping business from home before she got sick. She taught me a lot." Jack crossed his arms, looking skeptical. "And what's in it for you? A place to stay, work experience. Time to figure out what I want to do with my life without being rushed." Lily met his eyes steadily, and honestly. "I'd like to spend more time with you. You've shown me more kindness than anyone has in a long time. I'd like to return the favor." "I don't need favors. Everyone needs something, Jack, even you." He looked away, staring out at the snow-covered mountains. She could see him thinking, weighing the options, probably listing all the reasons this was a bad idea. Finally, he sighed. "Winter's the slow season anyway. Come spring, I usually take a load of furniture down to the market in town. Always meant to do it more often, but I hate dealing with people. So let me deal with them. You make the furniture, I'll handle the business side. We split the profit 70-30, 60-40. You'd be doing real work. Deal." Lily stuck out her hand. Jack looked at it for a long moment, then shook it. His hand swallowed hers completely, rough and warm and strong. "Spring," he said firmly. "Come spring, we revisit this arrangement. And you're still going to live with your aunt eventually. This is just temporary, understand?" "I understand." But as they walked back to the cabin, both of them knew something had shifted. This wasn't just about Lily needing shelter anymore. This was about two people who'd found something in each other that they didn't even know they were missing. Over the next few weeks, they fell into a new routine. Mornings were for chores and working in the barn. Afternoons, Lily would help Jack with his furniture projects, learning how to sand and stain and put pieces together. He was a patient teacher when he wanted to be, showing her the right way to do things and explaining why quality mattered. "Anyone can slap together a chair," he told her one day while they worked on a dining table. "But a good piece of furniture should last generations. Should be something your grandkids use and think about you when they do." Lily started organizing his workspace, labeling tools, and creating an inventory of all his finished pieces. She was shocked to discover he had over 30 items just sitting in storage, some of them absolutely beautiful. "Why aren't you selling these?" she asked, running her hand over a gorgeous dresser made from cherry wood. "Never got around to it." "That's ridiculous. This is worth serious money," Jack shrugged. "Money's not everything," says someone who has enough of it. "Jack, you could be making a real living from this. Maybe even hire some help, expand the operation." "Don't want to expand. Don't want help. You have me now." He looked at her, something unreadable in his eyes. "Yeah, I guess I do." That night after dinner, Lily pulled out a notebook and started making plans. She listed all the finished pieces, estimated prices based on some quick internet research from Jack's spotty cell phone connection, and created a basic business plan. Jack watched her work from his chair by the fire, whittling a small piece of wood into what looked like a bird. "You're serious about this," he observed. "Very serious. You have a gift, Jack. It's a shame to waste it hiding up here." "I'm not hiding. Yes, you are. And I get it. I really do. The world hurt you, so you ran away from it. But running doesn't make the pain stop. It just makes you lonely." Jack's hands stilled on his carving. "You're pretty wise for 17. Trauma ages you." Lily looked up from her notebook. "My therapist used to say that before my mom ran out of money for sessions. She said people who've been through hard things either get bitter or they get better. I'm trying really hard to get better. Your mom would be proud of you." The words hit Lily right in the chest. She felt tears spring to her eyes. "You think so?" "I know so. You're strong and smart, and you didn't let the world break you. That takes courage." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the only sounds the crackling of the fire and the scratch of Lily's pencil on paper. Finally, Jack spoke again. "All right. We'll do it. Come spring, when the road's clear, we'll take a load of furniture to the market." "See what happens," Lily looked up, grinning. "Really? Really? But this is your project. You're in charge of it. I'll make the pieces, but you handle everything else. Deal. You won't regret this." "Jack?" "Probably will," he muttered, but there was a hint of a smile on his face. That night, as Lily lay in bed in Katie's room, she felt something she hadn't felt in over a year. She felt hopeful, not just about having a place to stay, but about actually building something, about having a purpose. She thought about Aunt Helen's offer. A small apartment in a city 3 hours away. A fresh start with family. It was a good offer. A safe offer. But being here with Jack, working on something meaningful, learning and growing, that felt like more than just safety. That felt like living. Spring was still months away. A lot could change before then. But for now, for this moment, Lily was exactly where she needed to be. And for the first time in 5 years, so was Jack. Winter slowly gave way to early spring. The snow started melting, filling the air with the sound of running water. Birds returned to the mountains, their songs echoing through the trees. And Jack's workshop became a hub of activity. True to her word, Lily took charge of the business side of things. She created price tags for each piece, researched the best times for the market, and even convinced Jack to let her take photos of his work with his old phone. The pictures weren't great, but they were good enough to show potential customers what he could make. Jack, for his part, threw himself into the work. Lily would wake up some mornings to find him already in the barn, sawdust covering his clothes, working on a new piece. He seemed lighter somehow, less weighed down by the ghosts that had haunted him for so long. They'd become a team. More than that, they'd become family, though neither of them said it out loud. Then on a sunny Saturday in late March, everything changed. The roads had finally cleared enough for regular traffic. Jack suggested they make a quick trip to town for supplies before the big market day. Lily was excited. She'd been cooped up on the mountain for months and was eager to see other people, other places. They loaded up Jack's old pickup truck and headed down the winding mountain road. The town of Pine Ridge sat in a valley between two peaks, a small place with maybe 3,000 people. Everyone knew everyone, which made Jack's 5-year absence the subject of endless gossip. When they pulled into the parking lot of Miller's General Store, Lily noticed people staring. An old woman whispered to her friend, both of them looking at the truck. A man pumping gas did a double take when he saw Jack. "They're staring at us," Lily whispered as they got out of the truck. "Let them stare," Jack said, but she could see tension in his shoulders. This town's got nothing better to do than gossip. Always has been that way. Inside the store, the whispers got louder. Lily heard snippets of conversation as they walked the aisles. "Is that Jack Patterson? Who's that girl with him? Heard he went crazy after his family died. Ain't seen him in town for years." Jack's jaw was clenched tight, but he kept his head up and focused on getting what they needed. Lily stuck close to his side, trying to ignore the stares and whispers. They were almost done when a woman's voice rang out across the store. "Jack Patterson! Is that really you?" They turned to see a woman in her 60s hurrying toward them, a warm smile on her face. She had kind eyes and gray hair pulled back in a bun. "Mrs. Henderson," Jack said, his voice cautious but polite. "Oh, it is you. Lord, it's good to see you, son. We've all been worried sick about you hiding away up there on that mountain." She turned to Lily, her eyes curious but friendly. "And who's this lovely young lady?" "This is Lily," Jack said. She's staying with me for a while." Mrs. Henderson's eyebrows went up and Lily could see the exact moment assumptions were made. "Wrong assumptions. Staying with you? Well, that's nice." "It's not like that," Jack said quickly, his face going red. "She needed help. Her stepfather kicked her out during that big storm back in January. I gave her a place to stay. That's all, but the damage was done." Lily could see it spreading through the store like wildfire. People's expressions changed from curiosity to judgment. The whispers got louder and meaner. "Ain't proper a young girl living with a grown man. What's he thinking? That's not right." Mrs. Henderson looked uncomfortable now. "Well, I'm sure you're doing a good thing, Jack. It's just, you know how people talk." "Let them talk," Jack said, his voice hard. "Come on, Lily, we're done here." They paid for their supplies and headed back to the truck, but not before Lily heard one more comment that made her blood boil. Poor thing's probably desperate. Living with that hermit must be better than wherever she came from. She spun around, ready to give them a piece of her mind. But Jack's hand on her shoulder stopped her. "Not worth it," he said quietly. "Let's just go." They drove back up the mountain in silence. Lily was fuming, her hands clenched into fists. Jack's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "I'm sorry," she finally said. "This is my fault. I should have stayed hidden." "It's not your fault. It's this town's fault for being a bunch of judgmental busybodies. They think there's something inappropriate happening. I know what they think, and they're wrong. But it's going to cause problems. What if someone calls the police? What if they try to take me away?" Jack was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was determined. "Then we make it legal. Proper." "What do you mean?" "I mean I become your legal guardian. Official-like, with papers and everything. That way nobody can say anything. You're under my protection and it's all above board." Lily stared at him. "You'd do that? Even after what just happened? Even knowing people will talk?" "People always talk. That's what people do. But you need stability, and I can give you that. At least until you're 18 and can make your own choices." "Jack, that's huge. Are you sure?" He pulled the truck over to the side of the road and turned to face her. His eyes were serious and sad and determined all at once. 5 years ago, I lost my family and I gave up on everything. Gave up on people, on life, on any kind of future. Then you showed up at my barn, half frozen and desperate, and something woke up inside me. Something I thought was dead." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "You gave me a reason to care again. To try again. If making this official keeps you safe and keeps people from making your life harder than it already is, then that's what we'll do." Lily felt tears rolling down her cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet. Legal guardianship means paperwork and lawyers and dealing with the system. It's going to be a headache. I don't care. If it means I can stay with you, really stay with you, then it's worth it. Jack nodded and started driving again, but Lily noticed his eyes were a little shinier than usual, and when he thought she wasn't looking, he wiped at them with the back of his hand. The next week was a whirlwind. Jack called a lawyer in the next town over, someone who didn't know him and wouldn't judge. They explained the situation and started the process of filing for guardianship. The lawyer, a sharp woman named Ms. Chen, was thorough. "We'll need documentation," she said at their first meeting. "Proof that Lily's stepfather abandoned her. Character references for you, Mr. Patterson. A home inspection to make sure the living situation is appropriate. And Lily will need to testify that this is what she wants. Whatever it takes," Jack said. It wasn't easy. They had to get a statement from Aunt Helen confirming that Raymond had told her Lily ran away. They had to track down Lily's school records to prove she existed and who her guardians were. Mrs. Henderson, despite her initial surprise, agreed to be a character reference for Jack, telling the lawyer that he'd been a good man and a loving father before tragedy struck. The hardest part was when a social worker came to inspect the cabin. She was a young woman named Rachel, professional but kind. She walked through every room, asked questions, checked the food supply, and spoke to Lily alone. "Are you safe here?" Rachel asked, her eyes serious. "You can tell me the truth. Nobody will be angry." "I'm safer here than anywhere else I've ever been," Lily said honestly. "Jack saved my life. He's given me a home when I had nothing. He's teaching me things and treating me with respect. I want to stay with him." "And there's nothing inappropriate happening?" "Nothing, I swear. He's been like a father to me. That's all." Rachel studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay, I believe you." 2 weeks later, they got the call. The guardianship was approved. Jack Patterson was now officially Lily's legal guardian until she turned 18. That night, they celebrated with a special dinner. Lily made her mother's famous pot roast, and Jack even opened a bottle of cider he'd been saving. "To new beginnings," Jack said, raising his glass. "To family," Lily added, clinking her glass against his. As they ate and talked and laughed, Lily realized something. When she'd knocked on Jack's barn that frozen night, she'd been begging for just a corner. Just a little space to survive. But Jack had given her so much more than that. He'd given her a home, a purpose, a future, and most importantly, he'd given her back her faith that there were still good people in the world. People who helped not because they had to, but because it was the right thing to do. She looked at this gruff mountain man who'd become her guardian, her teacher, her friend. And she knew without a doubt that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Spring burst across the mountain like an explosion of color and life. Wildflowers bloomed everywhere. The trees filled with fresh green leaves, and the creek that ran behind Jack's cabin swelled with melted snow, its rushing water providing a constant soundtrack to their days. With the guardianship official, a weight seemed to lift off both of them. Lily wasn't a temporary guest anymore. She wasn't a charity case or someone just passing through. She was Jack's ward, legally part of his household, and that made everything feel more real, more permanent. The first thing they did was enroll Lily in Pine Ridge High School. She'd missed months of her senior year, but the principal, after hearing her story, agreed to let her finish through a combination of makeup work and online classes. She could graduate on time if she worked hard. Every weekday morning, Jack would drive her down the mountain to school. At first, the other kids stared and whispered, just like the adults in town. But Lily had learned from Jack to keep her head up and not let it bother her. Besides, she wasn't there to make friends. She was there to get her diploma. Still, she did make one friend, a girl named Sophie who sat next to her in English class. Sophie was quirky and loud and didn't care what anyone thought. When she heard whispers about Lily living with the weird mountain man, she shut them down fast. "So what? At least she's got someone who cares about her," Sophie said loudly in the cafeteria one day. "That's more than most of you can say with your parents who are too busy to notice you exist." After that, people mostly left Lily alone. And Sophie became a regular visitor to the mountain, much to Jack's initial dismay. "She talks a lot," he muttered after Sophie's first visit, during which she'd barely stopped for breath. "She's nice," Lily defended, "and she doesn't judge." "Fine, but warn me next time. I need to mentally prepare." Despite his grumbling, Lily noticed Jack would make extra food when Sophie was coming over, and he'd answer her endless questions about woodworking with surprising patience. Even taught her how to sand a chair leg one afternoon. As spring progressed, their furniture business started taking shape. Lily created a simple website using tutorials she found online. She took better photos using Sophie's phone. She even set up a social media page showcasing Jack's work. Orders started trickling in, first from locals who'd seen their pieces at the general store, where Mrs. Henderson had convinced the owner to display a few items, then from people in neighboring towns, then from someone 3 states away who'd found their website and wanted a custom dining table. Jack was shocked. People actually want this stuff? Jack, you're incredibly talented. Why is that so hard for you to believe? Because I've spent 5 years thinking I was worthless, I guess. The words hung in the air between them. Then Lily walked over and hugged him tight. You're not worthless. You never were. You were just hurt. Jack hugged her back, and for a moment they just stood there in the workshop, surrounded by sawdust and half-finished furniture and the smell of wood oil. Thank you, he said quietly, for pushing me, for believing in me. That's what family does. The word family seemed to settle something in Jack. He pulled back and cleared his throat roughly, the way he always did when emotions got too big. Speaking of family, he said, your birthday's coming up next month. Oh, yeah, I guess it is. You'll be 18. Legal adult. Free to make your own choices. Lily's stomach dropped. She knew what he was really saying. When she turned 18, the guardianship would end. She'd be on her own again. I know, she said carefully. I've been thinking about that, and I was hoping I could stay. Keep working with you. Keep living here, if that's okay with you. Jack's face did something complicated. Relief and happiness and worry all mixed together. You sure? You could go to college, live with your aunt, see the world. You don't have to stay stuck on a mountain with an old hermit. First of all, you're not old. You're only 43. Second, I don't feel stuck. I feel home. Lily met his eyes steadily. I've been thinking about community college. The one down in Pine Ridge has a good business program. I could commute, keep helping with the furniture business, and get my degree. Best of both worlds. You've really thought this through? I have. Unless you don't want me here anymore. Don't be stupid. Of course I want you here. Jack ran a hand through his hair, looking flustered. I just don't want you to limit yourself because you feel obligated to me. I'm not. I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you. I'm choosing us. Lily gestured around the workshop. We've built something good here, Jack. Why would I walk away from that? Jack was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. Okay, we'll make it work. But you're paying rent once you're 18. Rent? Seriously? You'll be an adult. Adults pay their way. Though I'm willing to accept furniture sales as payment. Lily laughed. Deal. Her 18th birthday fell on a beautiful May day. Lily woke up to find the cabin decorated with wildflowers that Jack had clearly picked himself. He'd even made a birthday cake, lopsided and a little burned on one side, but made with love. Sophie came up for the celebration, bringing a gift bag full of art supplies she'd somehow known Lily wanted. Aunt Helen called to wish her happy birthday and told her she was proud of how she'd handled everything. But the best gift came from Jack. After the cake was eaten and Sophie had headed home, Jack handed Lily a small wrapped box. What's this? She asked. Open it and see. Inside was a key, a simple brass key attached to a hand-carved wooden keychain in the shape of a bird. It's a key to the cabin, Jack explained. Your home, official-like. And the bird is because you flew here during that storm and somehow decided to stay, even though you could have flown anywhere else. Lily felt tears streaming down her face. She threw her arms around Jack's neck and hugged him tight. Thank you for everything. For saving my life. For giving me a home. For being my family. Jack hugged her back and she felt him shaking slightly. When she pulled away, his eyes were wet. You saved me too, he said roughly. I was dead inside when you showed up. Just going through the motions, waiting to die. You reminded me what it felt like to care about something. To care about someone. You gave me a reason to keep going. They stood there on the cabin porch looking out at the mountains as the sun set behind them. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink and purple, so beautiful it almost hurt to look at. I was thinking, Lily said after a while, maybe we should clean out Katie's room. Jack went very still beside her. What? Not throw anything away, Lily said quickly. Just pack it up carefully. Put it somewhere safe. That room should be my room now, really mine, and keeping it like a shrine. I don't think that's what Katie would have wanted. I think she'd want you to keep living. Jack's jaw clenched, and for a moment Lily thought she'd pushed too far. Then he nodded slowly. You're right. It's time. But I can't do it alone, and you won't have to. We'll do it together. The next weekend, they spent a full day carefully packing up Katie's things. Jack told stories about his daughter as they worked, about how she loved butterflies and insisted on wearing her princess dress to the grocery store, about how she'd follow him around the workshop chattering nonstop, handing him the wrong tools but being so proud to help. They laughed and cried and remembered. And when it was done, when the room was cleared and cleaned and ready to be Lily's, Jack stood in the doorway and took a deep breath. She would have liked you, he said. Katie, she would have thought you were the coolest big sister ever. Lily's throat was tight. I wish I could have met her. Me too. Jack put his hand on Lily's shoulder. But I think maybe you being here is a gift from her somehow. Like she sent you to take care of her old man because she couldn't be here to do it herself. It was the most emotional Lily had ever seen Jack, and it made her love him even more. Not romantic love, something deeper and more permanent than that. Family love, the kind that isn't about blood but about choice. That night, Lily moved her few belongings into the room that was now officially hers. She put up some posters Sophie had given her, arranged her books on the shelf, hung the key Jack had given her on a hook by the door. As she lay in bed that night, listening to the creek rushing outside and Jack moving around in the other room, Lily thought about how far she'd come. 6 months ago, she'd been desperate and alone, begging for just a corner of a barn. Now she had a whole room, a whole home, a whole family. Sometimes the best things in life come from the worst moments. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find what really matters. And sometimes family isn't the one you're born into. It's the one you build with people who show up when you need them most. Summer arrived in full force, painting the mountain in shades of green so deep they almost looked black in the shadows. The furniture business had grown beyond anything either of them had imagined. What started as a small operation had turned into something real, something sustainable. They'd had to expand the workshop, adding a new section to the barn. Jack hired his first employee, a quiet young man named Ben from town who'd lost his job at the lumber mill and needed work. Ben turned out to be a natural at woodworking, and having him around meant Jack could focus on the custom pieces while Ben handled the simpler orders. Lily had officially enrolled in community college for the fall semester. She'd been accepted into their business management program and was excited to learn more about running a real company. The furniture business was doing well, but she knew they could do better with the right knowledge and strategies. On a warm evening in late July, Jack and Lily sat on the cabin porch, watching the fireflies dance in the gathering darkness. They'd just finished a big order for a restaurant in the city, 6 tables and 24 chairs. The check had been the biggest they'd ever received. We should celebrate, Lily said, sipping the lemonade she'd made earlier. We are celebrating, this is nice. I mean, really celebrate. Do something special. Jack gave her a sideways look. What did you have in mind? I was thinking we could take a trip. Just for a weekend. Maybe go to the coast. I've never seen the ocean. Jack was quiet for a moment. Lily knew what he was thinking. He hadn't left the mountain for more than a few hours at a time in 5 years. A whole weekend away would be huge for him. I don't know, he said finally. Business is busy, and Ben's still learning. Ben can handle things for 2 days. He's good, Jack. You know he is. Lily turned to face him. When's the last time you did something just for fun? Just because you wanted to? Can't remember. Exactly. We work hard. We deserve a break. Come on, what do you say? Jack sighed, but Lily could see him softening. You're not going to let this go, are you? Nope. Fine. But just a weekend. And we're taking the truck, not flying. Lily grinned. Deal. 2 weeks later, they loaded up the truck and headed east toward the Atlantic. The drive took most of a day, winding through mountains and then flatter land, until finally they could smell salt in the air. When they crested the last hill and saw the ocean spread out before them, endless and blue and sparkling in the sunlight, Lily actually gasped. It's beautiful, she whispered. Jack smiled, really smiled, his whole face lighting up in a way Lily had rarely seen. Yeah, it really is. They spent the weekend doing simple things, walking on the beach, eating seafood at small restaurants, watching the sunset over the water. Jack was tense at first, uncomfortable around so many strangers, but gradually he relaxed. By the second day, he was actually laughing at the seagulls fighting over dropped French fries. On their last evening, they sat on the beach watching the waves roll in. The sun was setting, turning everything golden and pink. "Thank you for pushing me to do this," Jack said. "I needed it more than I knew. Everyone needs a break sometimes. It's more than that." Jack picked up a handful of sand and let it run through his fingers. "For 5 years I was just existing, hiding, punishing myself. I thought that's what I deserved after what happened to my family. But you showed me that I can have a life again, that I deserve to have a life again. You always deserved it, Jack. You just couldn't see it. I can see it now. Because of you." He turned to look at her, his eyes serious. "You know, when you first showed up at my barn that night, I almost didn't open the door. Almost just ignored the knocking and let whoever it was figure it out themselves." Lily felt a chill run down her spine. "What changed your mind?" "I heard your voice, so desperate and scared. And I remembered Katie, remembered how small and vulnerable she was, how she needed protecting. And I thought, what if that's somebody's daughter out there? What if she dies because I'm too much of a coward to help? I'm glad you weren't a coward." "Me too." Jack was quiet for a moment. "You saved my life just as much as I saved yours. You know that, right?" Lily felt tears pricking her eyes. "Yeah, I know." They sat there in comfortable silence, watching the ocean and listening to the waves. Two people who'd found each other in the darkness and helped each other find the light again. When they got back to the mountain, there was a surprise waiting. Ben had not only handled everything perfectly, he'd also received 3 new orders. The business was thriving. Fall arrived, bringing cooler temperatures and trees that blazed with color. Lily started college, diving into her classes with enthusiasm. She'd come home from school full of ideas for improving the business, and Jack would listen patiently, often admitting that her college professors might actually know what they were talking about. One evening in late September, as they were finishing dinner, Jack pulled out an envelope and set it on the table. "What's this?" Lily asked. "Open it." Inside was a check. A big check made out to Lily. More money than she'd ever seen in her life. "Jack, what is this?" "Your share of the business. We're partners, remember? 60-40 split. That's your 40% from the past 6 months." Lily stared at the check, her hands shaking. "Jack, this is too much. I can't accept this." "Yes, you can. You earned it. You built the website, handled all the orders, did the marketing, kept the books. This business wouldn't be half of what it is without you. But you're letting me live here for free." "No, I'm not. You cook, you clean, you help with chores. That's your rent. This money is separate. This is for your work on the business." Jack's voice was firm. "You're not a charity case, Lily. You're my partner, and partners get paid." Lily looked at the check again, then at Jack. This stubborn, kind, broken man who'd taken a chance on a desperate girl in a storm, who'd given her not just shelter but purpose, not just a place to stay but a home. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." "Stop thanking me. You've thanked me enough for a lifetime." "Then I'll just say this. You're the best thing that ever happened to me." Jack's eyes got shiny and he cleared his throat roughly. "Yeah, well, you're not so bad yourself, kid." As fall turned to winter, their first year together came full circle. On a cold December evening, exactly 1 year after Lily had knocked on Jack's barn door, they stood outside looking at the first snow of the season. "Hard to believe it's been a year," Lily said, watching the flakes fall. "Feels like longer, feels like you've always been here. In a way, maybe I have been. Maybe this is where I was always supposed to end up." Jack nodded slowly. "My wife used to say that everything happens for a reason, that the universe has a plan even when we can't see it. I stopped believing that after they died. Thought it was all just random chaos and pain. And now I think maybe she was right. Maybe I needed to lose everything so I could appreciate what I have now. Maybe you needed to lose everything for the same reason." and maybe we both needed each other to find our way back. Lily leaned her head on his shoulder, and Jack put his arm around her in an awkward but loving side hug. "Thank you for opening that door," she said. "Thank you for not turning me away." "Thank you for knocking," Jack replied. "Thank you for being brave enough to ask for help." They stood there in the falling snow, a makeshift family built from broken pieces, a mountain man who'd lost his way and a girl who'd lost her home. Two people who'd saved each other by simply choosing to care. The furniture business kept growing. By the second year, they had 4 employees and were shipping pieces across the country. Jack's work was featured in a home design magazine, bringing even more attention. They had to expand the workshop again. Lily excelled in college, making the dean's list every semester. She brought what she learned directly into the business, implementing better systems and finding new markets. She even started teaching a weekend workshop on basic woodworking for women, which became surprisingly popular. But more important than the business success was what they'd built together, a real family, not based on blood or obligation, but on choice and love and mutual respect. Jack started smiling more, laughing more. He'd go to town without tension in his shoulders. He made friends with some of the other business owners. He even started dating a woman named Carol who owned the bookstore, though he was awkward about it in a way that made Lily tease him mercilessly. Lily blossomed too. She made more friends at college. She started painting in her free time, covering canvases with mountain scenes and abstract designs. She grew confident and strong, no longer the desperate, frightened girl who'd begged for shelter. But she never forgot where she came from, never forgot what it felt like to have nothing and no one. That's why, 3 years after she'd first arrived, Lily came to Jack with a proposal. "I want to start a foundation," she said one evening over dinner, "for kids who've been kicked out or who have nowhere to go. We could provide temporary housing, job training, maybe even apprenticeships in trades like woodworking." Jack looked at her thoughtfully. "That's a big undertaking." "I know, but we could do it. We have the space, we have the business, we have the knowledge, and we know what it's like to need help and not have anywhere to turn. You're talking about building something permanent, something that would outlast both of us." "Exactly." Lily's eyes were bright with passion.